48 Hours and CBS News present Season 3 of My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty. This season, join Erin for extended interviews with convicted murderers. Go beyond speculation to the evidence. Did Arturo Gatti really commit suicide? And what happened to Jennifer Dulos, the Connecticut mom still missing almost 4 years later? Listen to My Life of Crime from 48 Hours, wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you a fan of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert? Then you'll love The Late Show Pod Show with Stephen Colbert. It's The Late Show in podcast form. Listen to The Late Show Pod Show with Stephen Colbert on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Tonight, Donald Trump subpoenaed the January 6th committee, demands the former president testify under oath. As a top Trump ally who refused to testify, today gets 4 months in prison. Steve Bannon today fined and sentenced to prison for defying Congress. CBS's Scott MacFarlane was there and reports on the new details about the Mar-a-Lago raid. We're learning about the highly sensitive information in those classified documents. Hospitals running out of beds, filled with kids like this 2-month-old who is struggling to breathe because of a respiratory virus. CBS's Omar Villafranca speaks to the parents.
I was scared to lose him, honestly.
American troops at the ready. Exclusive access with the 101st Airborne near the Ukrainian border. CBS's Charlie D'Agata reports this is not a training deployment, but a combat one. Music superstar Taylor Swift, the most streamed female artist of all time, crashes Spotify. And CBS's Steve Hartman goes on the road.
This is the CBS Evening News with Norah O'Donnell, reporting from the nation's capital.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us on this Friday night. We want to begin with what is likely to become a historic legal battle unlike any other in American history, as Congress today ordered former President Donald Trump to testify under oath. The January 6th committee followed through on its unanimous vote to subpoena the former president for documents and his testimony related to his false allegations about the 2020 presidential election. In a letter, Chairman Benny Thompson and Vice Chair Liz Cheney write that the committee has gathered, quote, overwhelming evidence that Trump personally orchestrated a multi-step effort to overturn the 2020 election and obstruct the peaceful transition of power. This comes on the same day that longtime Trump ally Steve Bannon was sentenced to 4 months in prison for defying a subpoena from the very same committee. Bannon remains free tonight as he appeals his conviction. Plus, we're learning new details about those classified documents seized from Mar-a-Lago in August. CBS's Scott MacFarlane is going to start us off tonight from Capitol Hill. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Nora. More than a year into its probe, the House January 6th Select Committee wants to put the man at the center of its investigation under oath, seeking critical records from Donald Trump by November 4th. That's 4 days before the midterm election, and seeking his deposition 1 week after.
The January 6th committee today demanded testimony and documents from the former president, arguing he played a central role in trying to subvert the election and triggered the assault on the Capitol. In the letter accompanying the subpoena, they write the evidence demonstrates that you knew this activity was illegal and unconstitutional, and also knew that your assertions of fraud were false. Panel member Pete Aguilar said they're open to questioning Trump in a live hearing.
We're going to be prepared if the former president decides to come, and if he puts restrictions on it for live testimony, we're going to be prepared for that eventuality. We will be prepared in any scenario to take testimony under oath from the former president.
The committee wants information about Trump's dealings with key players who've all pleaded the Fifth, plus all his communications by phone, text, or the private messaging app Signal on January 6th. They also want any information referring to the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, or other militia groups.
We are obligated to seek answers directly from the man who set this all in motion.
A source tells CBS News that among the documents seized on August 8th at Trump's Florida estate was one containing information about Iran's missile program and another including highly sensitive intelligence work aimed at China. Material that, if exposed, could jeopardize foreign sources or even prompt other countries to retaliate against the U.S.
To the extent his supporters are calling this a overblown documentary matter, we're talking the crown jewels. It's hard to see how anybody could do greater damage than spiriting them away and not keeping them protected.
Meanwhile, Trump's former top aide, Steve Bannon, was reprimanded in federal court in Washington for failing to comply with a January 6 committee subpoena. Judge Carl Nichols, a Trump appointee, ordered Bannon to serve 4 months in prison and pay a $6,500 fine, saying he showed no remorse for his actions.
Mr.
Bannon ignored reporters' questions, only attacking President Biden.
And we will groom the Biden administration ends on the 8th evening of the 8th of November.
The judge did allow Bannon to remain free pending an appeal, which could take months. Meanwhile, a Trump attorney tells CBS News the committee's public announcement of that subpoena was unprecedented and inappropriate. Norah, that raises real questions about whether the former president ever intends to cooperate.
That's a good point. Scott McFarland, thank you. Well, tonight, the health crisis that has parents on edge and is overwhelming hospitals is spreading. More infants and young children across the country are being diagnosed with the respiratory virus known as RSV, and pediatric beds are quickly filling up. Hospitals in at least 33 states are seeing a dramatic rise in the number of cases. CBS's Omar Villafranca has more.
Luciano Velasquez was a healthy baby, but last week his mom Megan knew something was wrong with the 2-month-old.
Just a look in his eyes, I know my baby, he's a happy baby. He rarely cries, but I could tell he was in pain. He just looked like he could not breathe.
She took Luciano to Piedmont Athens Regional in Georgia, where she learned he had RSV.
You could look at the rib cage and you could see his skin pulling in as he breathed. They say that's a major sign.
Her 2-year-old daughter Marina also has the virus.
I was just really scared. Didn't know what to expect. I was scared to lose him.
RSV leads to nearly 60,000 hospitalizations among children younger than 5 every year and 100 to 300 deaths. Adults 65 and older are also vulnerable.
Compared to previous years, we have, more kids in school in person, we have more groups getting together, and a lot fewer masks. This is probably the consequence of all of that, which is more respiratory viral illnesses, including RSV.
But there are things that can be done to help prevent infection. Cover coughs and sneezes, wash hands frequently, and clean and disinfect surfaces. With holiday gatherings coming up, doctors urge parents to be vigilant.
Be careful who gets really close to newborns because, they could be carrying RSV. And just to really keep an eye on them when they're sick. If you have any second thoughts at all, go straight to the emergency room. The worst they can do is send you away.
And Omar Villafranca is with us now from Dallas. And Omar, I'm hearing from so many parents who are worried about this. Based on all the doctors that you've spoken with, what should parents know?
Well, doctors remind parents that not all the symptoms show up at the same time, and the virus usually runs its course in 5 to 7 days. Some good news, Norah. Little Luciano was discharged from the hospital this afternoon.
That is good news, Omar. Thank you. Well, there was a sea of blue in Connecticut today as thousands of police officers from around the country gathered for the funeral of 2 officers who were killed last week in an apparent ambush. CBS's Tanya Rivero is there.
Our family was as close to perfect as could be because we had you.
Today, thousands of police officers from across the country gathered at Pratt & Whitney Stadium for the joint funeral of Lieutenant Dustin DeMonte and Sergeant Alex Hamzy, both promoted posthumously.
So while you may know my officer as a number, no, he is far more than that. He is my hero, my protection, the love of my life, and of course, my heart.
Alongside family members were Bristol police officers carrying the fallen.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Both officers were shot dead last Wednesday night in an apparent ambush. Body camera video shows officers coming under fire after responding to a 911 call.
Words cannot express the grief we are experiencing.
Officer Alec Urato was injured and fired one gunshot, killing the gunman. He's being hailed a hero. 34-year-old Sergeant Hamzy was with the department for 8 years. 35-year-old Lieutenant DeMonte was a 10-year veteran. He was a father of 2, with a 3rd child on the way. In observance of the funeral, most of Bristol was closed today.
God bless the families, the children that's been left behind. Just God bless them all.
It's just the most beautiful thing that nobody ever wants to see. And we saw that today, and we couldn't help but just come and pay our respects today to these 2 fallen officers.
Behind me, the memorial here at the Bristol Police Department continues to swell, as you can see, and emotions are raw. 2 young boys wept as they laid out cards for Lieutenant DeMonte, their adored school resource officer. Nationwide, 53 law enforcement officers have been killed by gunfire so far this year, compared to 50 at this time last year. Norah.
God bless those officers. Tanya Rivero, thank you. Well, now to some breaking news out of Michigan. The teenager accused of killing 4 fellow students and injuring 7 others last year at a high school outside Detroit is expected to plead guilty next week. 16-year-old Ethan Crumbley is facing 24 charges, including first-degree premeditated murder and terrorism. He will appear in court on Monday. Turning now overseas, the president of Ukraine warned today that Russia is planning to blow up a dam at a hydroelectric plant near the Russian-occupied city of Kherson, and that would trigger a large-scale disaster. And there was a rare phone call today between U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Russian counterpart. It was their first conversation since May. Now, just over the border in Romania, CBS News was given exclusive access to the Army's 101st Airborne Division as they are deployed to Europe for the first time since the last World War. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is there.
They're America's go-to combat troops.
Go, 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 go.
The soldiers of the 101st Airborne Division, now the closest U.S. forces to the fight in Ukraine. We joined Colonel Edwin Mathadas and Brigadier General John Lubis on board a Black Hawk helicopter where we flew along the coast of the Black Sea, across those same waters from Russian-held territory in Ukraine, including Crimea.
What is the what-if? What are you preparing for? We got 2 major tasks, right? To assure our allies and deter our adversaries from doing anything.
Fully aware those adversaries have eyes on everything this close.
Is that part of it? That's the entire part of it. That's the whole deter aspect, right? They know that we're here. They know that we're ready. We're just coming within 3.5 miles of the Ukrainian border. In fact, that city behind us is in Ukraine. We're right on the edge of NATO territory.
We reach a forward operating site to watch forces of the 101st Screaming Eagles in joint exercises with Romanian troops. Tanks, artillery, open fire with live rounds. A drill designed to replicate the exact battle conditions in Ukraine. Roughly 4,700 soldiers of the 101st have been sent from Fort Campbell, Kentucky to reinforce NATO's eastern flank. On war footing. This is a full deployment.
Yeah, this is not a training deployment. This is a combat deployment for us. We understand that we need to be ready to fight tonight, depending on how the situation escalates across the border.
In this case, that border includes the Black Sea, right behind us. This marks the first time the 101st Airborne Division has been headquartered here in Europe since World War II. The general told us that symbolism is not lost on his soldiers. Norah?
Charlie D'Agata in Romania, thank you. It was a big day in the music world, and the number for Taylor Swift's highly anticipated album are just coming in. Swift's latest release, Midnights, which dropped at midnight, has become the most streamed album in a single day in Spotify history. The singer-songwriter's 10th studio album was so popular that it briefly crashed the service. CBS's Jamie Yukas reports.
Taylor Swift surprised fans, debuting a new music video just hours after her highly anticipated album, Midnight's drop.
It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
The overnight release briefly crashed Spotify, cementing Swift's status as the most streamed female artist on the popular music platform. The 11-time Grammy winner describes Midnights as stories of her sleepless nights.
I struggle a lot with the idea that, my life has become unmanageably sized.
A well-choreographed digital campaign has been teasing for months the rollout of Swift's 10th studio album. Brittany Spanos is a senior writer for Rolling Stone and teaches a college course about Taylor Swift.
She's so good at interacting with her fans and interacting with the public in that way. She grew up online. She's been so smart and curious about new social media platforms and how to use them.
With this new release and re-recordings of her previous songs, the 32-year-old is building up ownership of her music and continues to make history with her own brand of pop. Jamie Yugas, CBS News.
I was listening to the album today. All right, shifting gears, severe turbulence strikes a passenger jet, injuring at least a dozen people. We'll have that harrowing story when we return.
This is Intelligence Matters with former acting director of the CIA, Michael Morell.
This week, University of Chicago professor Bob Pape joins us to talk about political violence in the United States.
I think our democracy is at a precarious moment, Michael. We're used to thinking of the two-party system as the shock absorber. Now, you have political support for violence at the top edge of the leadership of one of those two parties.
Follow Intelligence Matters wherever you get your podcasts.
A popular college professor found dead in a hot tub. Accident or murder? Suspected her boyfriend. Then, a stunning act from their host. A sudden shotgun blast.
There's something he's hiding.
Follow and listen to the 48 Hours podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly 300 people aboard a transatlantic flight from Spain to Brazil were violently shaken when their plane ran into severe turbulence. It happened on an overnight flight earlier this week. Several passengers who weren't wearing seatbelts hit the ceiling. At least a dozen people were injured, including one who reportedly, look at that, suffered a broken nose. Wear your seatbelt. And have a look at this terrifying scene in central Mexico. That's a cargo train rolling through a massive fire that broke out when a gasoline tanker truck crashed into an overpass. The train didn't have time to stop before the fire erupted, damaging several houses. About a dozen people had to be rescued from their burning homes. Remarkably, we're told there were no serious injuries. All right. There's a McDonald's restaurant in Massachusetts where the workers get more than a job. We'll go on the road when we return. McDonald's restaurants serve billions of hamburgers every year, but there's one restaurant where the workers are the ones being served and saved, thanks to a very special woman. Here's CBS's Steve Hartman with this week's On the Road.
Of all the fates that could have fallen on 18-year-old Emmanuel Graham, business student at the University of Massachusetts Lowell seemed most unlikely of all. Both his parents died before his 13th birthday.
After those years, I kept messing up in school because both of my biggest support systems, they were gone.
So you were rudderless all the way through junior year in high school?
I didn't think I would make it to college or senior year.
Emmanuel credits his remarkable turnaround, at least in part, to a mentor, a woman who has offered countless kids in Lynn, Massachusetts, a heaping helping of love and guidance, along with a side of fries.
Hola! I get so excited when I walk in the door because I know what I'm coming to now. I'm coming to my family.
This is McDonald's assistant manager, Andrea De La Rosa. Emmanuel used to work for Andrea and gave her the nickname Mama McDonald's.
I appreciate you, Mama.
You never stop being a mother just because they're not your kids.
To Andrea, managing young people on their first jobs is about so much more than barking orders. It's about listening.
I went to school today.
Helping with homework, college applications, really any issue, at any hour, for every kid who works here.
She treats me as if she's her child. She always checks on me. She makes sure I have everything that I need.
It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. At night, she'll pick up.
She will pick up. Like, I don't have like a relationship with my mother. Dre gives me the mother figure that I never had.
It's just a little bit of kindness, a little bit of love that means the world to somebody.
At a time when most employers are offering incentives if you stay, Andrea is offering unconditional love, no matter where your career takes you. And as a result, employees are receiving bonuses of immeasurable value.
To have a person of support to help me go through it, it kind of like slowly healed like what I was missing.
And as for his future, Emmanuel says he doesn't know yet what kind of business he'll go into. He just knows the kind of boss he wants to be. Steve Hartman, On the Road, in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Well, Andrea is an angel. We'll be right back.
I'm Mo Rocca, and it's been a while. But I've been busy digging up even more stories about the people and things of the past that are fascinating me now.
What did your father think of the label, of the whole idea of the Latin lover?
From the screen idols who redefined Hollywood's leading man.
I think it was a love-hate relationship. My dad hated the word macho.
That's what I call the Latin lover type of a role, which is one-dimensional.
To the dog who introduced millions of kids to classic literature.
I remember, like, on my 10th birthday, I think it was, we were going to go mini golfing, and I insisted, but we had to stay home for Wishbone first.
Listen to Mobituaries, wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Takeout with Major Garrett.
This week, Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. What would you say about the reporting and the rhetoric that's come from Herschel Walker?
I cannot see into his heart and know the whole truth. Yes, I can see that it would be most seriously disturbing about if any of it is true. Like, we've dealt with a lot of imperfect candidates.
For more from this week's conversation, follow The Takeout with Major Garrett on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sunday on Face the Nation, with the fate of Democrats' control of Congress hanging in the balance, Margaret's guests include House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. That's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Norah O'Donnell. Good night, and I hope you have a great weekend.
This October, Paramount Plus is your destination for peak screaming.
Scary equals...
With maniacal movies like Orphan, First Kill.
It's lovely to be back.
Frightening family films like Monster High, the movie.
Welcome to Monster High.
Scary series like Evil, Ghosts, and Teen Wolf.
There's something out there.
Plus an entire collection of other devilish delights. Peak screaming on Paramount Plus. Stream now. Hey, podcast fans. Stephen Colbert here to tell you all about The Late Show Pod Show with Stephen Colbert. The Late Show Pod Show is a podcast featuring everything you love about the #1 show in late night. It's got the jokes, the goofs, the monologue, the sizzling celebrity interviews, plus moments never before seen on TV, all wrapped up in a podcast that drops new episodes 7 days a week. With The Late Show Pod Show, you can listen to The Late Show while driving home from work or cooking dinner or getting ready for bed. By the way, amazing job flossing. Your dentist is going to be so proud. Listen to The Late Show Pod Show with Stephen Colbert on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.